doing for well over a decade and just building that businesses that I've been building and,
I never wanted to lose. But unfortunately, I think when you do lose, you learn some of your biggest lessons. And I kind of.
And there's so much stuff that we have and that we keep to ourselves, and then there's stuff that we share. And
It all started in a quiet little room. No flashing cameras, no royal titles being thrown around, just a group of familiar faces who had known each other for years. And right there, sitting calm and collected, was Serena Williams. You know Serena, she doesn't need to say much. Her presence alone speaks louder than words.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry photographed on a sushi date in California. Last week, they celebrated their...
The vibe in the room was light, fun, easy laughter bouncing around. It was one of those gatherings where everyone feels comfortable. But then, oh honey, out of nowhere, a whisper sliced through the air like glass shattering. And it wasn't about tennis or fashion or even the royal circus that one of their friends had walked into. No. It was smaller, more shocking, and way more explosive. Someone leaned in close, almost like they couldn't believe they were even saying it, and whispered about Meghan Markle's real age. At first, nobody reacted. The words just kind of floated in the room. But then, those words reached Serena's ears, and you could feel the energy shift in an instant. Her face froze. She leaned back just slightly, her expression changing in a way that silenced everyone else.
And both of you start twerking, because in her mind she was thinking, I'm going to release this later in a Netflix doc or release.
And then came the question. Simple, quiet, but so heavy it sucked all the air out of the room. How did she have kids? This wasn't shade. It wasn't anger. It was raw confusion. A disbelief that made you pause and think, wait a minute, what story have we really been told here? And because it came from Serena, the Serena who's all about grace, discipline, and control, nobody could dismiss it as silly gossip. Oh no, it hit like a shockwave. Smiles disappeared. The whole vibe changed. Suddenly, Meghan's picture-perfect timeline? Yeah, it didn't look so perfect anymore. Before we go deeper, you have to ask yourself, what could make Serena Williams, who's known Meghan for years, freeze and question something so basic? What did she notice that the rest of us missed? If you're ready to see how the puzzle pieces stop fitting together, stick with me, because after this, you'll never look at it the same way again. Now let's rewind. Let's go back to where the cracks first started showing.
Netflix documentary series of Harry and Meghan. After Meghan Markle carried her baby.
To understand Serena's question, we've got to start at the very beginning of Meghan's story. According to Meghan's official bio, she was born in August 1981. She graduated from Northwestern in 2003, supposedly at age 22. On paper, nice, clean, simple, perfect little timeline. But here's the thing, perfect stories don't always match reality. In Northwestern's archived yearbooks, Meghan is smiling in the back row of the salsa club, looking like any other bright, carefree college student.
You see me in hindsight, tangled up with you all.
But people started digging, closer, deeper, and that's when things got messy. Some of the people next to her in those photos, they weren't 21 or 22. They were born in the early 70s. Public records even show some of them finished high school as far back as 1988 or 1989, almost a decade before Meghan's supposed graduation in 1999. And these weren't just random faces. Nope, their names pop up again and again. In alumni newsletters, group photos, club announcements, this was her circle.
Harry and Meghan did not lose their titles. When they stepped back from the royal family.
So if Meghan was truly 22 in 2003, why on earth was she surrounded by people nearly a decade older? And this is where the cracks begin to show. Because when your story doesn't match the documents, it's no longer just whispers, it's records. And if Meghan was born earlier than she claims, honey, that changes everything. The pregnancies, the timelines, the photos, all of it. Suddenly, what looked like a simple biographical detail blows up into something much, much bigger. And Serena, she knew. She's been by Meghan's side through milestones and headlines, through the private and the public. So when she heard that whisper about Meghan's real age, you bet her brain started calculating fast. The math didn't add up. The timeline didn't make sense. And her question wasn't an accusation, it was instinct. The same instinct that makes her pause before serving, reading the court better than anyone else. That moment of disbelief cracked open a door nobody wanted to walk through. Because if the age was wrong, then everything built on top of it might be wrong too. And that's where the question lingered in the air. How did she have kids? The silence was deafening. It wasn't the kind of question you could brush off. It hung in the room like smoke, heavy, unanswerable. And that, my friends, is where this story really begins. Because when Meghan's pregnancy went public, the world cheered. But what happened next? Oh, it was strange. Very strange. The glossy covers, the cameras chasing her every step. It all looked so perfect. But behind those carefully staged photos, something wasn't adding up. In one photo, her bump sat high and round. In another, taken just days later, it dropped lower, smaller, almost like it had shifted overnight. And this wasn't subtle. No, it was obvious. Captured by professional royal photographers. Archived in history. The human eye knows when something looks off. The shapes, the shadows, the placement, it didn't stay consistent. Then came the moment no one could ever unsee. A video clip quietly made its way around. Meghan smiled sweetly as she lowered herself into a chair, and for a split second, her stomach folded in on itself. Yes, folded, in a way that looked physically impossible. The palace brushed it off. Oh, it's just the camera angle, they said. Just lighting, just fabric. But once you'd seen that clip, you couldn't unsee it. And here's what made it even stranger. Meghan's hands. Oh yes, if you look back at the photos and appearances, no matter the event, no matter the outfit, her hands always went to her stomach, over and over again, gently cradling, carefully holding, deliberately drawing attention to it. It wasn't just a natural gesture, it felt almost rehearsed, almost like the bump itself had become the star of the show, the centerpiece of every picture, a prop that needed constant protection. That one clip of the stomach folding, it stopped being just curiosity. It became the first visible crack in the carefully curated image of perfection. Because when you pair that clip with Serena's chilling question, how did she have kids? Suddenly that crack looks like the beginning of a much deeper fracture. And you know what? Sometimes the truth doesn't come from official documents or fancy photographs. It comes from the people in the shadows, not the royals in front of the camera, but the staff just out of frame, the assistants, the coordinators, the people who see everything but say nothing. Over time, whispers started to trickle out. Tiny details shared in confidence, never meant for headlines. One event planner recalled watching Meghan backstage late in her pregnancy, except, shockingly, she didn't move like a woman in her final trimester. No stiff walk, no aching back, no careful sitting. She moved with ease, gracefully, almost too gracefully. Her movement just didn't match the reality of someone heavily pregnant. And another insider added fuel to the fire. They never, not once, saw the bump uncovered. No dressing room moments, no fittings, no private glimpses, always covered, always fabric between her and anyone else's eyes. Even in intimate settings where privacy should have allowed for natural comfort, no one saw it. And remember, these weren't conspiracy theorists online. These were professionals, people actually there, first-hand witnesses. Now, one story you can dismiss, but when accounts pile up, it becomes a pattern. A carefully managed stage-like pregnancy, controlled visuals, a choreographed bump, Serena's doubts about the age, the folding video, the inconsistencies. Layer after layer, the picture starts looking very different. And then, as if the whispers weren't enough, something happened that left even medical professionals baffled. Because after Meghan supposedly gave birth, instead of the expected quiet recovery, she stepped out in front of the world, just days later. And the way she looked, it stunned everyone. She appeared polished, radiant, almost too perfect. Not in loose clothing that new mothers usually need, but in a fitted dress, high heels, walking with steady steps, while most women at that stage can barely manage flats. There was no sign of exhaustion, no fragile movements, no protective posture. She looked untouched by the physical toll of childbirth. Doctors and experts who watched from afar couldn't believe it. Quietly, they said her recovery seemed remarkably fast. Some even hinted it looked impossible without outside intervention. Because let's be real, even with the best medical care in the world, the body needs time to heal. That's not a choice, it's biology. Yet here she was, standing tall, glowing, every detail controlled. The timing, the clothes, the duration, it didn't scream recovery. It screamed performance, a brief appearance, then back behind palace walls. A perfectly staged moment. And what did the world see? A glowing mother, a smiling husband, a newborn cradled lovingly, a picture book moment fit for history books, the fairy tale reborn. But let me ask you this, if it all happened naturally, why did it feel so staged? Why did even the most human act, a mother holding her baby, seem more like a photo op than a genuine slice of life? Because perfection is the problem. Childbirth isn't perfect, it's messy, it's painful, it's raw. But Meghan's version, it felt like a presentation, a show. And when you stack that on top of the age mystery, the folding bump, the unseen belly, the impossible recovery, it stops being random coincidences. It becomes a pattern that's just too suspicious to ignore. And of course, when people started asking questions, what did they find? Locked doors, private records, birth certificates full of question marks. The staff who knew more, bound by silence, gag orders, contracts, nobody talking. Anyone who could answer was trapped behind legal walls. The documents that should have been routine, suddenly impossible to access. And behind the palace walls, silence wasn't just encouraged, it was demanded. Because in those circles, loyalty is everything. Careers, reputations, decades of hard work, all at risk with a single word. Speaking out wasn't an option. Questioning, even worse. That's why silence became policy. The palace didn't need to deny, it simply refused to respond. No statements, no clarifications, no explanations for the cracks in the story, just silence. And that silence, it was louder than words, because denial gives power to the questions. But silence? Silence kills them slowly, smothers them. And that's how official narratives survive. Repeat the fairy tale enough times and it becomes the truth people remember. Meanwhile, the doubts, the whispers, fade into the background. But not for everyone. Not for Serena. Not for the people who noticed. Not for the ones who couldn't unsee what they'd already seen. It's wild, isn't it? How silence can be the most powerful tool in the world of royalty. No answers, no denials, just this icy wall of privacy. And the public? Most of them moved on. Because when the media repeats the same polished story over and over, it becomes the only story people remember. Oh look, Meghan glowing with her baby. Oh how beautiful, the happy family of 3. But behind all that glitter, Serena's question kept haunting those who had seen too much. How did she have kids? The fairy tale remained intact. A prince, a duchess, a new baby. What more could the public want? But for the few who noticed, those who saw the cracks, that silence was the loudest answer of all. And then, of course, came the photographs. The perfect family shot. Meghan glowing, Harry beaming, the baby nestled perfectly. It was straight out of a storybook, and yet, some people couldn't shake the feeling that it was too perfect, too clean, too polished. The shifting bump, the folding video, the unseen belly, always covered, the suspiciously fast recovery, the secrecy around records, and above it all, the age discrepancy that sparked it all in the first place. Serena didn't mean to unravel the fairy tale, but in one frozen moment, she did. And that's why her question, those 4 words, still hang in the air like smoke, unanswered, unanswerable. How did she have kids?